If you notice, if you're noticing a new angle, I have a new iPad stand. The other iPad thing was a plastic holder. This is an actual stand that wraps around, and the stand has its own little foot rather than put in a picture frame rack. Yeah. So you may or may not notice a different tilt. That's why. We're gonna talk about the case of the 5 so-called officers being the living shit out of Tyre Nichols. First and foremost, I always say, every time a police officer kills someone, you always, without any exception, even if you're related to the guy they killed, wait, because you never know what might be revealed. Okay? We were literally told at one point in time that a white police officer grabbed a black child walking to his grandmother's house, pulled him into a squad car, smacked the shit out of him. When he broke free and ran away, he pulled out his gun, yelled racial slurs, chased him down, shot him in the back. Like 9 times. Okay? In reality, it was a 6'4", 300-pound grown adult that was a robbery suspect who was caught on camera committing said robbery, and he literally punched the officer in the face, climbed into his car, punched him in the face again, tried to grab his gun, was shot once, retreated, ran back, and then tried to circle back and charge him like a bull. Okay? 2 very, very different stories. Okay, if you also remember Qasem Soleimani, who was the Iran's director of terror, whatever the fuck he was. Okay, he was basically like an Osama bin Laden that takes a paycheck. Okay, in fact, my friend who was killed in Iraq, it's very likely that the explosives from that bomb that were thrown through his window, what happened was he was in his Humvee with his men, and they were attacked, and he was defending the Humvee, and a device came to the window, boom, and killed him. Well, they called Qasem Soleimani the Princess Diana of Iran. Princess Diana, forget about her personal life. Princess Diana, that literally lobbied every world government to abolish landmines, was compared to a terrorist who gave bombs to other terrorists to kill American soldiers with. Okay? So the media is not, under any circumstances, a reliable source, period. Okay? In fact, the minute you tell me I found out on the news, I immediately tune you out. The minute you say I found out on the news, I just walk away. Especially if we're talking about a police officer involved killing. Okay? So you always reserve judgment to the last possible minute. Now, that being said, we had 5 men, all were black, on a special anti-crime task force, which most police departments have. Scorpion was an acronym for some other bullshit, but most departments will have an anti-crime unit or some kind of specialized unit that does something. It might be a conglomerate of things. It might have different subcategories. This is the narco unit, this is the homicide unit, this is the gang unit. And they basically go out and aggressively pursue gang members, terrorists, drug dealers, pimps, okay, even dog fighters, okay? I've seen state police departments that have task force dedicated to some dog fights, okay? So a lot of departments have task force of some kind that do some things. Now, they had a guy for suspicion of reckless driving. Now, most of the time, if you look at a traffic violation, they specify what happened. It ran a stop sign, ran a red light, speeding, whatever. Okay? Reckless driving could very well be a combination of things. You ran a red light while you were speeding. You made a turn without signaling and almost hit a pedestrian. Okay? And they will write down in the description of your citation, you did this, that, and the other thing. Now, 99.999% of the time, reckless driving or any traffic violation results in a summons. Most states have a point system where every summons is 3 points, and if you score 11 points or more in an 18-month period or less, your license is suspended. My home state, if you refuse to take a breathalyzer test, the officer at the scene has the power to suspend your license for 30 days without consulting a judge. And practically every police department, every court, every DMV in the country, driving under the influence is 11 points automatically, plus whatever other punishments like attending a DWI class, paying a bigger fine, making a statement to moms against drunk driving, okay, attending rehab, going to jail, okay, depending on what's going on. Also in my home state, drunk driving with anyone in the car who is under 18 is an automatic felony, period. But reckless driving is a big interpretation. Now, typically your license is suspended, 11 points, no question. Drunk driving, 11 points, also no question. Everything else, the license suspension depends on the traffic court judge and your behavior. Okay, if you tell the cop his mother's a whore, if you don't want to give your license, if he has to arrest you to get the license, it's pretty much he's gonna request the judge to suspend your license. Okay, I knew a guy in my apartment building. God, I know this guy before I was born. I didn't know. I knew when I came from the hospital, I was born. Very, very long time guy. He was going past a school that was designated 20 miles per hour. He was doing 35. And the cop recommended his license to be suspended. And the judge said, no, I'm not going to suspend the license, but I'm going to give him a big-ass fucking fine. Okay? So it's a different interpretation. And every once in a while, it might be an arrest. Example, if you're going 100 miles an hour in a 55 zone. If you're speeding at twice the legal limit by a construction site. If school is either being called into session or being dismissed from session and you speed past the cool school. Okay? Or if you have a stopped school bus and you pass the school bus like 50 miles an hour. That may actually result in an actual arrest. Okay? If you refuse to give your license to the officer, you do not have a right to say no when he says, I want your license now. You do not have a right to say no. At all. If you think you didn't do it, then you have to give him the license and if you write the citation, write down in the citation, I am not guilty, and mail it to the traffic court judge and ask for a hearing. But as far as refusing to give the license up, that is an arrest. I've actually seen video footage of people, you've probably seen it too online, where people say, I don't want to give you my license. And the cop says 5 times, I want that license now. And at the 6th time, he just busts the fucking window open and drags him out of the car. Okay? So, that's that. Now, when this guy was stopped, first and foremost, I'm going to start this conversation by saying they cannot prove he was driving recklessly. God's truth. Second, even if they could prove their case against him, can they prove that what they did was justified? Okay, unless he is literally shooting up a fucking school, or unless he is literally in a fucking nunnery killing the fucking nuns, I doubt very much they can prove a case against him. I mean, if you look at that video, and there's several different videos of this, body cam videos, there's a surveillance camera video, okay, they've seen punching the shit out of him. One guy is seen running and kicking him. They're seen bragging about what they did. I think a baton was used at one point, okay? They really, really, really fucked him up big time. Okay? And I've seen guys get their ass beat by the cops. I was even working in a supermarket one time, and the store that we beat the shit out of a guy one time. He was stealing disposable cameras. And he started resisting. So, we broke his wrist, we broke his ribs, okay? You know, we fucked his ass, but I'm just saying it. You know, I mean, I've been in situations where I had to hurt somebody physically. But, you know, you're beating the fuck out of a guy. And most cops have been in a situation where they've had to hurt at least one guy. Most cops will tell you there was one situation where I had to hit the guy with the baton, or I had to shoot the guy, or I had to run up to the guy, tackle him, knock him to the ground, and he bust his nose open. Okay, most cops will tell you that shit. But I cannot fathom any concept where this will be legal. Example, when they pulled him over, they immediately dragged him out of the car. No warning, no request. Now, typically the police protocol is ask, tell, make. Now, obviously, if a guy comes out of the alley with a knife, or if we arrive at the scene and the guy has a 9-year-old girl naked on the floor and he's unzipping his pants, I mean, if there's a crazy situation, okay, I guess you could say skip step 1 and 2 and go right to step 3. Fine, that's great. But in most logical situations, you're supposed to at least give the guy the opportunity to surrender. They didn't say, "May I see your license?" They didn't say, "May you put your hands up?" They just dragged this out of the fucking car and started beating the fuck out of him. And if they were not wearing uniforms, I would think it was a fucking gang fight. I would think they either caught a gang member or caught a guy they thought was a gang member and were fucking him up. Because, I mean, this is a brutal beating. Now, there's one scene where he runs up, he gets up, runs away, and they tase him. Now, can you legally escape custody? Yes. If you honestly believe that a police officer is going to murder you during the course of an arrest, you can legally run away. But the minute you run away, you must find some way to surrender again to someone. Example, go home, lock the doors, call 911 and say I was being arrested and I try to cooperate, but the cop wanted to murder me. I want another cop to come here and arrest me. Or if you're close by the police station 24 hours a day, you can walk into the police station and tell the desk officer, I was being arrested, I was being abused by the cop, I broke free, I want to surrender now. I'm going to surrender here. Okay? Or if court is in session, you can go to the courthouse if you're within reasonable distance, obviously. And you can tell the court officer at the checkpoint, I was being arrested. I was being abused. You can see, you know, my face, my whatever. Okay. Tell the judge I want to surrender now, and the court officer can take you into custody himself, bring you up to the judge immediately, and you can tell the judge or you can tell the DA. Okay, because there's a DA in the office, and you tell the DA, listen, I was being arrested. I don't want to say if I'm guilty or not. That's my decision to make. But I was being arrested, and I was being abused by the officer, and I want to talk to internal affairs. I want to press charges against him. I want my lawyer. Okay, you can do that as long as you surrender to someone else within an appropriate period of time. And I think that's what he was going to do. Another situation, he has his arms behind his back. He's on his side, and they're saying, lay down, get on your stomach, get on your stomach, get on your stomach. Okay? Get on your stomach, get on your stomach. He's like, I'm already on the ground, what the fuck? And they start punching him again. Here's the problem. It is human nature not to turn your back when you're in danger. And I tell people all the fucking time, never turn your back on an enemy. This guy was on the ground, getting the fucking shit beat out of him, and he was afraid of being killed, which eventually did happen, obviously. Now, they also have other guys under indictment because they are being terminated or being suspended because they didn't render aid or didn't file a report. Here's the issue, okay? Every peace officer, paramedic, fireman, is a mandated reporter. And so are doctors, nurses, lawyers, judges, teachers, okay? They are mandated by their profession and by written law sometimes to report any misconduct that they see. Now, when you see a guy in a fucking pool of blood, okay, and you see 5 cops standing, they brag about how they fucked his ass up, okay, you will be required at that point to actually call 911 and tell 911 flat out, listen, I got a guy here that's being arrested, and he's fucking hurt real bad, and the cops are bragging about how they fucked him up, okay? You'd also be obligated to go to internal affairs and tell internal affairs, I was a police officer, I was a fireman, I was a paramedic, and I arrived at the scene after the fact, and I saw this incident, and I think, okay, you have to cooperate. And the question is, do you want to be a rat? Well, do you want to go to jail? I cannot tell you, I think, 1, 2, 3, I could say that 11 years working the street, 1, 2, 3, there's been maybe 4 or 5 incidents where I had a suspect taken into custody, which never had, nothing to do with me at all, period. I would be on the scene doing whatever, and there would be some incident happen. One incident, they would pull a guy over and say, hey, you get out of the car. No, there's more than 4. I'm sorry, there's more than 4. One incident, I actually saw, I'll tell you this real quick. A guy was going over the double yellow line. He was on top of the hill. He's going over the double yellow line to come forward. And he would eventually make a left-hand turn on a red light. He actually came all the way down the hill. And I immediately told the pedestrians to stay back. And there was a fucking unit right in front of me on the main street. And I told the unit, I'm like, hey. And they saw him and they went after him. And I saw like 3 other units run. I think he got arrested. But there's been about a half dozen. And in all cases, the guy was cuffed or gal and put into custody. Now, if I had seen any incident where they were being beaten, tortured, okay, then I had medical attention, I will be obligated as a public servant to report that. And if I fail my report, I can be indicted. The first thing they do is fire your ass. That's the first thing that happens. But in addition to that, they talk about indictment. Should you be indicted for failure to report this incident? I mean, it's just so cruel and disgusting. Now, there's talk of racism. Well, there's a fucking surprise. Here's the issue there. I was watching a documentary one time years ago of wasn't Chicago, Detroit, it was another city controlled by Democrats, obviously. And it was a high school, mostly black kids. And they were talking about the past year's violence victims, murder victims, all this shit, black on black violence, students, their families, other friends that were killed by violence. And there was a security guard who was he was also a preacher. So a security guard at the school and a preacher. And he was saying, he was black obviously, and he was saying we are the #1 racist against ourselves. That's him talking, not me. Okay? You call it as you see it. Okay? Now in 2019, there were 2 black people murdered by police. 2. And in both cases, the officer in question went to jail. One incident was the woman who was on the wrong floor, opened the apartment door, thought the guy was in her apartment and shot him. That wasn't necessarily murder as much as it was a really, 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 really dumb mistake. And she went to prison for a couple years. She may be out now. But that was a horrible incident, but that was unjustifiable. Now, in that same calendar year, 2019, a black person was 3,500 times more likely to be killed by another black person than by a police officer. This happens to be one of those cases, 1 out of a trillion, where it's both. It's an example of police violence and black on black violence. Okay? And I don't know what the fucking problem was. But it's just really, really, really fucking cruel. And I urge you, if you're ever in that situation where you see this going on, pick up the phone, call 911, Tell 911. I got a little battery now. I gotta sign off pretty soon. Tell 911. I witnessed. I'm watching a police arrest, but it's so fucking violent that I think they're gonna kill the guy. And the guy's in submission. Send other officers to deal with the situation. Yes, they're police officers, and yes, they're arresting a guy, but he's fucked up so bad, I think he may die. And he's not resisting, he's just getting the shit beat out of him. Another thing I find troubling, even if they didn't know the surveillance camera was on top of the traffic signal, I think, they're wearing body cameras. You are wearing a body camera. And while you're wearing a body camera, you're beating the fuck out of a man. A man who was well into submission, a man who was well under arrest, a man who was posing no real threat to you at this exact moment, even if he's a murder suspect. At the exact moment, he's cuffed on the ground, and you're just beating the living fuck out of him. What do you think is going to happen when your boss sees that tape, when the judge sees the tape, when the jury sees the tape, when the DA, what do you think is going to happen? Okay, there have been a couple of incidents, not many, but a couple, 50 years ago, where the cop will be in the alley, boom, and shoot a guy as he's running away. It was not as common as the media wants you to think it was, but it did happen. And there would be a witness he didn't know about, or a guy in a window looking down, oh shit. And like, God damn, there's a witness, shit, I'm fucking down. But you literally have a camera on your body. What the fuck are you thinking? Also, Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin has a prisoner who's in custody, and the prisoner, George Floyd, is high on fentanyl. He's going to die in an hour anyway. George Floyd was going to die an hour later of fentanyl poisoning. Okay? And it's broad daylight. There's a million witnesses. Some looking directly at you. Some have their camera phone on. And you got your knee in this fucking guy's neck, and you're looking, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? Okay? See, you got to be a real fucking psychopath if you literally know you're on camera and you do it anyway. Now here's one argument before I have to sign off, and because I gotta sign off and get ready to go to my overnight job in a little while. I have time to relax. I'm just saying I gotta sign off for some. I heard someone say, I don't know if this is true or not, okay, that 2 of the 5 guys were hired because of lower standards. Defund the police. This is defund the police. Because when you defund the police get less equipment, less training. Yeah, because you need training to say this is wrong, right? But also the screening process, where they might have 10 applicants and they got to fill one position. There's like one academy seat opening up, and they have 10 applicants, and out of 10 applicants, one guy is a real asshole. Okay, you can go over there and you can go. Better luck next time. We'll hire one of these 9 guys. Okay, the longer the background is, the better the investigation is. You have more time to figure out who's who. And it's entirely possible these guys, the last 2 guys, assuming it's true, were hired because there was no one else to fill the spot. Okay, the screening process goes faster, and they have less leeway. Well, I gotta put someone in the academy class. Now, personally, if that is true, I would rather see one less cop on the street than see one cop like this in the street. Okay? Blue lives matter. The thin blue line is real. Okay? But this is one example out of 10 million where it's better to have less cops than have cops like this in the street. Okay? I feel safe with less cops in this situation. That's just me. Okay? That's just me. I'm the first person to support the police. I'm the last person to say the police would do this shit. Okay? I'm a member of a police department myself. Have been for 11 years. But this is the type of situation where I don't want to see you on the job. And we want to defund the police. This is what happens. Okay, thank you. Good night.